How have you seen a person's life be ruined in a single day? One day during my junior year in high school back in the 1980s, I came downstairs on a Saturday morning and my mom asked me, "Do you know Bob Johnson?" I said, "Yeah, I sit next to him in English." She turned the local newspaper around and there was Bob on the front page in handcuffs. He had murdered his dad and tried to cover it up. Apparently his dad had been raping him for years, and Bob finally had enough. Shot his dad in the head with a .22 while he slept. Fortunately the courts were lenient. They gave him a new identity, moved him out to somewhere in the Midwest, and gave him counseling. I guess this one day ruined his dad's life, and saved his own. I saw him on Facebook a couple of years ago. He's using his real name, is married with kids, and working as a driver for one of the big parcel delivery services. I'm so glad his life turned out pretty normal. Not his real name. Man came in to rob the bar I was drinking in. Bartender told him to get effed. Man shot him twice in the crotch and walked out. My neighbor knocked on the front door early one morning. We'd never met. He introduced himself and wanted me to know why there might be a lot of cars parked in front of the house. All three of his children had died in a car accident the night before. A girl in my class got caught with a thermos full of vodka, and when the teacher caught her, she got sent to the principal's office. Well, when the principal asked her why she was drinking, the girl told him that she had been sleeping with the school resource officer. Dude was a cop stationed at the school having sex with a 10th grader. Got dragged out of the school by officers that worked alongside him. At the court hearing they found out he was having sex with two more girls at the school. His wife and two kids were in the courtroom to support him because he told them he was innocent. That kinda caved when one of the girls had a video of the two of them having sex. Doing an MRI on a 33-year-old healthy man, because he was a bit dizzy, and finding a golf ball tumor in his brain. Read the radiology report, Google type of tumor, finding only 5% survive. Edit: I should also say that I do a lot of 30-something-year-olds who come in for head issues and almost every single one of them are fine. When I was in EMT school we were told about a paramedic student instructor was a paramedic as well who observed a stabbing call. They arrive at the bar and see a dude with a knife in his abdomen. Medic student takes lead and pulls the knife out, something you never do as I'm sure you know. Senior medic loses his fucking mind at this dumbass, asking him what the fuck he was thinking. Student freaks out and, you guessed it, puts the fucking knife back in. The patient died as a result. Student lost any chance of having a good job, not even just in EMS, and was charged with the death of the patient. Might have been manslaughter, I don't remember. His entire life was ruined because he freaked out and made a mistake on a call, not a rookie mistake or a common slip-up, but in about half a minute he ruined his life. Watched a mom and her kid on a boat escorted by law enforcement back to the dock. Her boyfriend had gone swimming off the boat. The wind pushed the vessel away from him. She didn't know anything about how to turn it on to move it closer. It kept getting farther, he kept swimming harder. He eventually slipped under, and was recovered 80 feet down a few days later. I'll never forget the look on her face. Never. He was a 28-year-old airman. Peak health. Wear a life jacket, people. You're not stronger than Mother Nature. And don't leave a boat without someone who can drive it safely. Have a friend whose boss got into a gnarly car accident a week ago. Today she was officially told she's paralyzed from the waist down. She was also notified today that her husband died non-car accident related. I don't know exactly why he passed, but to go from a happy life with your soulmate to not being able to walk and have your life partner is something I can imagine recovering soon from. We were standing on a downtown corner watching 4th of July parade when we saw the parents of one of the players on a soccer team I coached talk to someone and began running like hell through the crowd with panic-stricken faces. Someone came to our door later and told us the Matt, their 10-year-old son, had jumped off a float to get some candy thrown by someone on another float and had tripped. The float he was on ran over his head, killing him. Our son was on the same float and hadn't gotten home yet. One of the most depressing moments in my life. The parents were never the same. The people on floats in our town never threw candy again. I think of Matt every 4th of July. My dad used to work at Prudential Financial, and he told me that in the days after Enron's stock suddenly dropped to nothing, some of his coworkers just walked around like zombies. Apparently they'd put a ton of money into Enron, and were now completely screwed. Not my personal experience, but a national news story. A van full of college students got into an accident and most of them died, but one girl survived with major injuries. She had facial trauma and was hospitalized for weeks. She kept repeating another girl's name as she was recovering. Turns out, she was saying her own name. She and another similarly built, same hair and eye-colored female passenger were mistakenly identified for each other in the aftermath of the crash. Her family had a funeral for her, and the other girl's family were the ones at her bedside before the misidentification was realized. I cannot even imagine the suffering of thinking your daughter was alive for weeks and then learning she'd been dead all along, or having a funeral for a child who was actually alive and you didn't know. When I was a kid, I lived in an apartment complex. One of the families had 3 young kids. One day the parents needed to run some errands, so they hired a babysitter to watch the kids. The babysitter fell asleep, and one of the kids started playing with some matches. The parents came home to huge billowing clouds of smoke and fire coming from all the windows. All 3 kids and the babysitter died. They were only gone for about an hour. I didn't know my biological father. He remarried after my mother dumped him and had 3 kids with his new wife. When the oldest was 12, bio dad and wife left her in charge and went out to the movies or something and came back to a house in flames and 3 dead daughters. When I finally met him decades later, he told me that they smelled gas in the house that morning but didn't do anything about it. So he had to live with that. I work as a registered nurse in a hospital in Kentucky. A patient came in through the ER raising hell and yelling things like, "I want to donate my organs. This place sucks. Fuck all of you," etc., etc. He stomped out the front ER entrance and a CNA nurse's assistant followed him out to attempted calming him down. He brandished a .45 and blew his brains out in front of the young assistant. He died. Organs couldn't be harvested. And she is in therapy. Like 7-ish years ago, a bunch of the crew chiefs at my guard base were out celebrating one of their own who got his associate's degree. They were all drinking, not a ton, and eventually went home. Except for one guy. He stayed and drank until last call. He decided to drive home. He hit a 20-year-old who was on his way to work at about 2 a.m., and turned him into a paraplegic. Our wing commander basically told him, plead guilty to the county and go to jail with an administrative discharge. His family would have been able to keep some of his benefits, like the VA loan and GI Bill, or fight it, lose, cost his family tons of money, and get a dishonorable. Dishonorable basically is like you never even served. He plead guilty. I was part of a notification team that told a mother that her 20-year-old son had died. Watching her collapse, I know that her life would never be the same after that. I'm sober 6 years. There was a guy who used to attend meetings in my circle who picked up a drink on a Friday after being sober for more than 2 decades. They found him in the bay on Monday morning. A guy that I worked with asked to have Friday night off as he was going out of town. Turns out he went to go meet with an underage girl he met on Craigslist, that ended up actually being a giant police sting. He was arrested for soliciting a minor. That was probably 6 years ago and the last I heard he was still locked up. Coworker got caught stealing and got fired. He went home and told his wife, and apparently she had enough and left him and took the kids. Police found him the next morning in the woods deceased. I saw a man's life just crumble in less than 24 hours. Edit. Okay, for some context. When I say steal, I mean close to $100,000 in precious metals from a cushy federal government job. Edit. 2. He was going to be arrested and knew it. Also, he killed himself for everyone asking. When I was about 13, I was talking with my best friend at a playground on a hill. Suddenly this lady comes racing down on her bike. She's not wearing a helmet, which was unfortunate because her bike slipped from underneath her and she goes flying, smacks her head into a corner. I was too young to know this at the time, but I'm almost certain she died instantly. Wear a helmet. This was back in junior high school. Dude sent his nudes to an 8-year-old, him being 12, and the school found out. The cops were involved and they pulled up to the school and he left in handcuffs. It also turned out that same 8-year-old that he sent nudes to, he beat her into a coma. Don't know what happened to him. Obviously he had some sort of assault and child pornography charges, but that's all I know.